Yeah, well, let's dig in. Hello, everybody. I'm David Cooks, and I tell you what, Scott Drew, the head men's basketball coach.
You can do anything you put your mind to.
2021 NCAA National Championship Baylor University Bears.
What seems impossible can be done by you.
It's a blessing to be alive every day, and life's too short to have a bad day. So work with people you want to work with, be in a job that God's given you talent and ability to be in, and make the most of that.
Got so much to give, a lot of life to live. You must go from paralysis to purpose.
Well, I got my pen here.
Yeah.
I'm taking notes.
Paralysis to purpose.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast. I'm your host, David Cooks, and yes, I love my job because I get to talk to some of the most intriguing and inspiring people in the world, and today is no exception. I'm really juiced up. I'm a basketball guy, and so I get a chance to talk with the head men's basketball coach at the 2021 NCAA National Championship Baylor University Bears. And I'm excited to have a conversation with him today and let you listen in on what we're going to talk about. So Coach Scott Drew, welcome to Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me on. And, you know, my coaching career might not have taken off if it wasn't for your help getting Bill and Bob Jenkins to the level they were at, because at Baylor University, 4 straight conference championships, 4 straight conference tournament championships, and a Sweet 16 because of you. So well done.
And hey, and the shot. I mean, there's the shot, and then there's a shot. Well, but Bryce's closest friends, maybe in college, were Bill and Bob Jenkins, and really,
I remember watching them at the David Kreider All-American camp, and they had those goggles on.
Yes, they did.
They played so hard, and you did a great job with them. Outstanding.
They were the epitome of what you guys have been successful in doing, and that is developing players and getting them to compete at the highest level.
Well, and you know, to develop somebody, they first have to have high character and work ethic to want to be coached and want to get better and care to get better. And we've been blessed to have a lot of players like them that want to do that.
That's fantastic. Well, let's go back to the beginning, because I want to go back to your very first press conference where you were prophesying. So you accepted the job, and the one thing you said was that you were there and you believed that Baylor University could win a national championship. My first question to you today about that is, did you really believe that, or was that coach talk? You know, we have coach talk.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that I prayed about coming to Baylor. I felt led to come to Baylor. Anytime God directs you somewhere, anything can happen. And at the same time, we'd been to the Sweet 16 at Valpo, and you're like, I mean, that's only 4 games from a national championship and 2 more from a Final Four. So I thought definitely we could get to a Final Four and have a chance to win a national championship. Absolutely.
Fantastic. You talked about some things in your press conference. You talked about leadership. You talked about a family atmosphere, and then you talked about work ethic and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Can you just share with us when you got there, because you inherited a mess. Let's just be honest. I mean, we're talking about going from paralysis to purpose, and paralysis takes on many forms. It's anything really that keeps you from performing at your highest level. Mm-hmm. And you inherited. There were people who said, I would never take that job. Mm-hmm. I would never go there. You said God directed you. What did you actually see that made you believe you could win there? And what didn't you see that made you believe you could win there?
Great question. So first and foremost, you believe in people, and meaning the administrators and leadership of the school. I mean, Baylor's the largest Baptist school in the nation, has a great academic reputation, a beautiful campus. But most of all, I believed in the leaders and their vision for the program, and not just Baylor basketball, but all the sports. And if you look at it this past year, 14 out of 17 sports were ranked in the top 25. four were ranked number one. Since 2013, men's and women's basketball and football have had the most wins of any school in the country. And so with all that success, it doesn't start unless you have great leadership and a vision. And they wanted to be an elite Christian school where people that wanted to come, and we call it preparing champions for life. But if you wanted to help people grow spiritually, academically, and then character formation wise, along with athletics, then this would be a place for you. So I was drawn to that and drawn to their vision.
Wow. So you didn't take a look at what was in your hand. You started looking down the road at what could happen.
Yeah, most definitely. If you looked what was in the hand, you wouldn't be as excited. I mean, our first year, we had 5 to 7 scholarship players. We had half the team were walk-ons, and it was a walk-on dream. Not only could you be on the team, but you had a chance to play. So you're not winning against top 25 teams with walk-ons usually.
Wow. So, okay, well, let's fast forward to not this season, but last season, where I thought you had a national championship team. I loved your team in the 2019 rather 2020 season, and then COVID hit. When did you know that you were right there, that you were in the conversation for winning a national championship? And then follow up with that with how you were able to navigate through the disappointment of not having an opportunity to gain that in 2020. Yeah.
Well, and I'll even go a step further back, because you and your relationship with Duke, obviously, we played Duke in the Elite Eight in 2010. And that was a year that they ended up beating us and winning the championship. And that was a game that we led a majority of the time. Last 5 minutes, they kind of took control and won the game. But it was a situation at that point, you're like, man, we could have won a national championship. They just won it. And we could have beat them possibly. And then 2012, we lose to Kentucky in the Elite Eight. Now, they had Anthony Davis. They won the national championship, probably a better team than us that year. But we could have been the second best team because we had just beaten Kansas in the Big 12 tournament. They finished second. And so you're like, you're right there. So you knew you're closer than some people might think. At the same time, you understand what a blessing it is to be able to get to a Final Four and win the last game, because there's a lot of great teams that haven't done that, because it's a 40-minute game. It's not best 4 out of 7 where the best team always wins. So I take that to last year. You look at it, and we were ranked number one longer than anyone since Kentucky in 2015. We'd won 23 games in a row, which broke the 1996-97 Kansas Jayhawk record in the Big 12 for 20. They had 22 straight wins. So at that point, we had maintained and been able to show that we could handle success. And a lot of times, the first time you become number one, this is the third time in 5 years we've been ranked number one. So we're used to it. But the first time we didn't handle it as well. It lasted 1 week. So when you're able to handle success like that and handle everyone's best shot and still be able to win, you know what? You're right. We were set to be the number one seed going in the NCAA tournament, one of 4 number one seeds. So you had a chance to win it. COVID hit, and unfortunately, we weren't given that opportunity, but most of our team returned. And when those that returned, it not only showed that they could compete at the highest level and could win a championship, but now they came back more motivated and determined, and they came back for the right reasons. It was to win a championship. So as a coach, it doesn't guarantee success, but you like your odds going into the year, you know?
That's right. That's right. So it's interesting. In my book, Getting Undressed from Paralysis to Purpose, one of the quotes I have in there says that how you handle success will determine how much success you can how much success you will handle. And so, what were your missteps the first time? Because the journey has ups and downs and everything. And you say you didn't handle the success the first time the right way. What happened there? What happened then? And how did the guys and you as a staff mature and being at the top? Because once you start rattling off all these statistics, I was like, you guys were like flying under the radar screen at a very high level, which is hard to do.
So when we ranked number one for the first time, I mean, there's a complete celebration. excitement in the school. Everywhere you go, everyone's congratulating you. And you know what? You're so excited to be ranked number one. You don't realize what you're in store for. And that means the next game you play and every game you play after that, not only are you going to get their best effort, you're getting the crowd's best effort. And you got all the naysayers out there that are firing up with all this number one ranked team coming in. And so you have to go to another level to beat people at their best. And like we lost at West Virginia, and they might have beaten us even at our best. I don't know. But I don't think as a head coach, I prepared our team for what they were in store for. And what I mean by that, there's sellout crowds, there's excitement. But then there's another level, which is you are playing the number one team in the country. And you very seldom get an opportunity to play a number one ranked team in the country. How excited would you be to play against that team? And you got to match that energy or have more energy and excitement than they do to beat them. So like you said, how do we handle it? We barely got on the dance floor. We were ranked number one, and we get on the dance floor, and we're not number one anymore. So, but again, those are life lessons that I think as a coach I learned from. But even more importantly, some of our players that had been in that situation, they learned from it. And as we all know, you can talk about putting your hand on a hot fire and getting burned. It's another thing you put your hand on a stove and get burned, you know? So the players actually remembered that, could pass that on. And one thing in coaching is, they listen to their coaches, but they really believe their own teammates a lot more, and it matters more what they think. So when they say, yeah, coach is right, all of a sudden now it means something.
We'll get back to my conversation with this week's guest in just a minute on Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast. This is David Cooks, and it's hard to believe this is already season 2 of a podcast that was just a dream of mine one short year ago. I hope you've been as inspired and motivated as I have been by our amazing guests so far. We've got an incredible second season lineup, which you'll be hearing more about soon. But let me invite you to listen again to one of the season 1 episodes. There's so many incredible moments. You'll be encouraged and inspired all over again. I know I have. Like episode 1 with Damon West, who describes how he journeyed from the paralysis of a life sentence in prison to become a generational talent, now working to transform 2 massive institutions, prisons and schools. His journey started when he decided to become a coffee bean.
But there was this one guy, this older black man named Mr. Jackson. One morning he comes up to me and he says, man, I've been watching how you're dealing with these knuckleheads and these dummies. Talk about you got to get into a game. He said, don't listen to these fools. Prison's all about race, Wes. He said, you can't change that. That's going to be the reality. And he's telling me that you got to fight all the white gangs. You want to be an independent. And after that, you got to get ready because the white gang's going to send the black gangs out. He's looking at a guy that's scared to death, man. And I'm, he can see it in my eyes, man, of this fear. And this is what he told me. He said, let me break it down for you another way, Wes. He said, I want you to imagine prison as a pot of boiling water. He said, anything we put in this pot of boiling water is going to be changed by the heat and pressure inside that pot. And he said, let's put 3 things in that pot of boiling water and watch what happens. And he said, a carrot, an egg, and a coffee bean. So he walks me through it. He said, a carrot goes into the water, the prison hard, but the prison changes that hard carrot, turns it soft and mushy and weak. He said, the carrot got beat, he got robbed, may got raped, and he may got killed. You don't want to be the carrot. He said, now the egg goes into that water and has a soft liquid core, that malleable heart. But in that water, that soft liquid core, his heart turns hard. He said, if your heart becomes hard, you're incapable of giving or receiving love. And he said, if you're incapable of giving or receiving love, you have become institutionalized and you will not come back to somewhere your parents recognize. He said, because your eggshell will have swastikas tattooed all over it. And then he dropped the bomb on me, man. He told me about the coffee bean. And I didn't know what happened to a coffee bean in a pot of boiling water. And he told me, he said, if I put a coffee bean into that same pot of boiling water we call prison, he said, now you got to change the name of the water to coffee. Because he said the coffee bean, Wes, the smallest of these 3 things. He said, small like you, had the power to change the entire atmosphere inside that pot because the power is inside that coffee bean, just like that power is inside of you. He said everything else was changed by the water, but the coffee bean was the only thing that could change the water. And the last thing Mr. Jackson told me, and he was telling me, he said, well, we put out energy, negative or positive. We attract the same kind of energy back, So he's telling me, if you want to walk around prison with a frown on your face and a mean mug, you want to look hard, you're going to attract the hard people.
Right.
But if you walk around with a smile on your face and let those guys know they cannot break you, no matter what they do, they can't break you, he said, you'll attract the other coffee beans. And the last thing this guy told me before I get in the prison bus, I'm getting ready to go get shackled up to another human being and get on a bus ride to prison. He's telling me, West, go out there and go be a coffee bean. 4 words, David, be a coffee bean.
That's Damon West from season 1 of Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast. If you'd like to hear the rest of our conversation, just click episode 1. It's entitled, Good Shot, White Boy, Being a Coffee Bean. Let's get back to my conversation with this week's guest, the head coach of Baylor University men's basketball team, Scott Drew. So let's talk about culture and how to build a culture, a winning culture, because that's what you've done with this group, and you did it at Valpo and wherever you've been. I mean, the Drew family seems to have something in them that allows for you to build culture. What is culture, and how do you build it?
Great question. So with our culture this year, it was a joy culture, and that's basically what we've had since we've been here. We just didn't come up with a way to state it as easily. And joy, Jesus, others, yourself. So I mean, every coach knows if you're playing with joy, that's a good thing. That means you're happy, you're fun to be around. But if you're playing for Jesus and you're playing for others and yourself last, that's a heck of a team right there. And you're getting not only the best effort for all your players, but you're getting the right effort, and that is for each other. And our team, I mean, as you know, you can say something, but actions always speak louder than words. So as a coach, you know what's important to you. And the first thing is it's got to be important to the players. And when it becomes a player-led team where it's important to them, that's where you're really getting somewhere. And then as coaches, it's up to us to make sure we maintain the accountability to keep what we value as important.
So accountability is a huge component of having a culture that is sustainable. Because,
no question.
And I think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, I'm sure there was horizontal and vertical accountability in your program.
Absolutely. And we've always tried to emulate and have a player-led team. And at the end of the day, we were blessed with great leadership this year. And I always say going into a new season, you never know about the leadership, because until they're in the fire, you don't know how they're going to respond. You never know about the chemistry, because at the end of the day, until they're in the fire, you don't know if they're going to bond together or tear apart. And then the third thing is you never know how injuries are going to affect the season. And I know we all believe in the next man mentality, but at the end of the day, if Michael Jordan was out for a year, the Bulls wouldn't be the same. If LeBron was out for a year, the Lakers ain't the same. So, I mean, injuries do affect the team.
Okay. What, as a coach, probably in the same line of a culture, what are your non-negotiables? You're out recruiting a kid and you're running a program. What are your non-negotiables?
Well, I think first and foremost, they have to have the character to fit in with your team. And what I mean by character is, are they going to do the right things? I mean, if they're not going to go to class and you're not going to academically be eligible, then there's no reason to recruit them. If they're not going to have a work ethic and a coachability that our players and coaches want to work with and be with every day, they're not going to be here. And then obviously, socially wise, I always say there's 3 things in college. You can be good academically and in your sport and socially, but you can't be good in all 3. You got to pick 2 of them, and hopefully it's academics and basketball, and the social part, when they get to the league, they can worry about that. But as we know, the more hobbies, the more interests you have, the harder it is to excel in one particular area. And I'm not saying that's a non-negotiable, meaning you're never allowed to go out or hang out with your friends, but obviously someone that's hanging out and doing things that you don't deem appropriate, that's going to affect your team and affect their performance individually and the team collectively. Because as we know, if you and I are roommates, and if you're always doing the wrong thing, eventually I might be doing the wrong thing, right? If you're always in the gym, I'm going to be in the gym, and that's iron sharpens iron.
Okay. Let's talk about the tough times. Okay. You've won a lot of games. You've lost a few games, but that's part of the business. How did you get through? I mean, you really have, this is also a story of perseverance in my mind. I mean, you've been there 18 years. First of all, that's that's the longest tenured in the Big 12.
Us and Bill Self.
You
came in at the same
right?
time. Yeah.
Same time. And you weren't always winning. And can you talk about how you get through the tough times and how you use losing, and how you flip that into learning, which then flips into winning?
Excellent. First and foremost, if you like losing or you're good with it, you're probably not going to be coaching long or playing long. So that's first and foremost. But as we all know, sometimes you learn better from a loss. And I mean, coaches know you have to be realistic too. Vegas has you a 40-point underdog. You're probably not going to win those games every night. All right. So like the first couple of years, I mean, our goal was to win, but if the players played as hard as they could, controlled what they could control, I mean, you can't be too disappointed, because at the end of the day, if you do everything right, I mean, you're doing your job as a coach, and then you got to continue to bring in more and more talented players, add more and more depth. And then, I mean, I know John Wooden always talked about never focusing on wins and losses, but did the players play to their best of their ability? And as coaches, sometimes the team's best ability is not good enough to win, and other times it is. And our job as coaches, hopefully we get the talent level and the experience level high enough where you can win every game. And then it's a lot more enjoyable when you max out and win. But I think everyone has to be realistic. You just open a business and you can't expect there not to be any errors, any blunders, any mistakes. And, it takes time for businesses to grow and perfect. So I think for our players, if they come to practice every day, and they're like, oh man, I got to deal with this guy for 2 to 3 hours, that's not the culture we want. We want them coming excited to be in the gym, excited to be around us. Just like your podcast, if you have guests that you're like, oh man, I got to talk to that guy. I mean, and listeners, I got to listen to that guy. I mean, you know what? You want people that are energy givers. And again, I think during those tough times, those kind of leaders that keep focusing on the future as well as the present, but not being unrealistic to the point where you can't get through the present to the future, So I think all that goes kind of hand in hand.
Being realistic is huge. I tell people, I'm in a wheelchair and have been now for a long time. And when I was coaching, the one thing I was not going to be able to do is teach you how to dunk the ball. I can teach you a bunch of other things about the game, how to play the game, but that I can't teach you. I have to be realistic about that. How do you get your guys, how do you teach players to be unselfish?
Well, I think, first of all, they have to be willing, and they have to have some sense of humility and character and desire to win, to compete with others, because it is a team game. You have some that just don't get that, and there's nothing you're going to do as a coach to ever get them to that point. But the vast majority are good teammates. They want to play on winning teams. They like playing with good players. So now it's just making sure that, you love for every shot to be a good, better, best. You turn down a good shot to get a better shot, to get a great shot. But I think everybody enjoying each other's success. And when you start to, as a coach, appreciate that, recognize that, encourage that, the teammate are able to be excited about each other's success, you're going to get more and more of that. And so often as coaches, we sometimes just reward who scores. Well, What about the defensive play that led to that, the block out that led to that, the hockey assist that led to it? What positive reinforcement are you giving? Because we know on social media or in the newspaper, they're normally just talking about the player who scored 25 points. That doesn't go into winning and losing as much as the guy that's getting defensive stops and rebounds and loose balls and everything else. I mean, they're all part of winning.
That's great. So it's important what you reward. I mean, I think sometimes
and recognize and honor and cherish.
Honor, yeah, because a lot of times, and I was guilty of it as a coach, I would end up spending more time on what I didn't want to see than I spent on what I did want to see.
Yeah, and that's a great way to say it.
That didn't work too well. I mean, I did okay, but it didn't work too well.
We'll be right back with Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast, with David Cooks and his guest, Coach Scott Drew from Baylor Men's Basketball. David's award-winning book, Getting Undressed from Paralysis to Purpose, is now available as an audiobook narrated by David himself. Here's an excerpt from Chapter 1, in which David recalls how, at the age of 15, a spinal aneurysm forced him to change the road he would take to discovering his purpose.
When they finally brought me to the examination room, the physician asked me question after question, feeling his way up and down my body in his search for the cause of my problems. He stuck pins and needles into my lower body, but I didn't grimace or scowl as each point penetrated my skin. I didn't feel a thing. I couldn't imagine what was wrong. Did my injury freshman year have anything to do with this? Did I aggravate something in my preparation for the upcoming basketball season? Just a week earlier, my doctor had given me a clean bill of health. What could have happened over 7 days? For the first time, I was really concerned that there was something really wrong, something serious. Eventually, I was taken into a larger room with more specialized and technical equipment. I lay on my belly and was strapped to a CT scanning machine for a myelogram, where a contrast dye was injected into my spinal column to see if they could rule out or confirm anything neurological. The X-ray table tilted so the dye could spread up and down my spinal cord. I turned my head, looking at the little screen, not really knowing what to expect. All of a sudden, the dye stopped and pooled. "Yep, that's it, all right," the physician said gravely. The physicians ran a few more tests and determined that a blood vessel had erupted on my spine. I was transferred once more to a different unit where a team of surgeons, some of Milwaukee's best, performed immediate exploratory surgery to see if there was anything that they could do to release the blockage. Unfortunately, the damage had already been done. In less than 24 hours, my life had been turned upside down.
That was David Cooks narrating his book, Getting Undressed from Paralysis to Purpose. Get your copy of the audiobook today. Now, back to Dave's conversation with Baylor men's basketball head coach, Scott Drew.
How do you stay on top? I mean, how do you now, what do you do? How do you, what's the key word or whatever method to stay on top?
Well, and again, I think it goes back to there's 353 teams. All 353 teams want to win a championship. Realistically, every year, experience-wise, talent-wise, probably that's not 353. And I think for us coaches, at least with our staff, if we max out and we're the best team that we can possibly be, we can live with the results. And that might be a national championship. It might be a Sweet 16. It might be an NCAA tournament. It might be an NIT championship. You really never know until you get into the fire and get into the season, just what hands you have. And what I mean by that is you go into every season and you best case, worst case, usually as coaches, there might be one or two positions that you're a little thin. If you get an injury there, that might really affect things. As far as players' mental approach, how are they? As I said, the leadership, the chemistry, the injuries, you never know. But that's the exciting part is in coaching is it's a new year every year. And we know one thing in college basketball, there aren't a lot of teams that repeat. John Wooden, I think, was the last one to be in that situation. And that was really at a different time. quite frankly, when you didn't have one and dones, the transfer portal and everything else. So, again, what we'll want to do is we want to see our players, we want to prepare champions for life, see them grow spiritually, academically, character-wise, on the court, max out what they can do on the court as a team together, and then live with the results from there. And each and every day, we're going to wake up. It's a blessing to be alive. We're gonna be joyful, have a joy culture, and see where that takes us.
You mentioned the word growth, and I was hoping you would go there because if you don't grow, somebody else will. And
no question.
You'll be in trouble. The last
the other thing, not to cut you off, but I mean, like with you, I'm sure one podcast to the next, you want to be better than you were before. And so often we look at players or coaches, and the moment you stop learning or improving is the moment you get passed up, like you said. So, I mean, hopefully I'm a better coach next year than I was this year. Hopefully our staff's a better staff, and hopefully the returning players are better. Yeah.
If you're not growing and learning, you're dying.
Yep.
So I think I want to grow and learn.
Yeah.
Hey, the last thing, because we're just about out of time. I know that faith is very important to you, and one of the reasons you're at Baylor University. Mm-hmm. Could you talk a little bit about what you do as a person of faith with your program, and how you do it?
Yeah, and it's a blessing to be able to start practice in prayer, prayer, to be with a Christian staff that we'll do a coach's Bible study. Players will do players Bible study. We have a Pastor Brewer that's on call 24/7. He's at all our practices, does a great job one-on-one and holding us all accountable and helping us all grow and leading our players in a Bible study and their coaches in Bible study. We have an associate pastor that comes in days a game for home game. Mark Weibel coached at Baylor before. Now he's associate pastor at Highland Baptist, one of the bigger churches in town. And he does our game day chapel services. On the road, we'll get our staff, our assistant coaches lead chapel service. And at the end of the day, as you know, just like in basketball, either you're improving or you're not. Well, spiritually, either you're growing or you're not. And it's not like going to church on Sunday, you're good the rest of the week, or I'm going to pray for one dinner and I'm good the rest of the week. I mean, we want to win the game of life. And when we pass away, we want to be in heaven with all the people we love and care about and all the people we encountered. It doesn't matter how many wins you have. Doesn't matter how much money you have. Doesn't matter how many likes or Twitter followers you have. Jesus paid that price. It's by grace we're saved. And we want to be, if we have done our job on earth, we've helped as many people and casted as many seeds as possible to have heaven as big a place as it can be.
Well, great. Before we end, any parting last nuggets of wisdom before we sign off?
Yeah, definitely contact us if you have a son that is going to be the next LeBron James or a 7-foot or something like that. Yeah, I definitely like that. But no, it's a blessing to be alive every day, and life's too short to have a bad day. So work with people you want to work with, be in a job that God's given you talent and ability to be in, and make the most of that.
Well, Coach Drew, it has been a pleasure, man, like for real, to get a chance to talk with you today, and, have a great next season. I'm going to be watching. I'm going to try to come down for a game or something now that we have a little more freedom with COVID and everything.
Yeah, would love that. And in the same time, thank you for helping my coaching career, Bill and Bob Jenkins.
No problem. Until next time on Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast, this is David Cooks reminding you that your ability to endure is always greater than your willingness to endure.
You can do anything you put your mind to.
Thanks for tuning in to Paralysis to Purpose. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paralysis to Purpose on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. To purchase his book, visit davidcookspeaks.com. Be sure to tune in next time for more inspiring conversations with David Cooks.
You're in control of positivity and how that's going to play out in your life. You're in control of your passion
Next time on Paralysis to Purpose.
Today I get to speak with Damian Bookman.
And everyone's like a magnet. If you're passionate about something, they want to be a part of it. And you're in control of your perseverance. It's up to you. Stopping is what stops you. You can choose to quit or not quit. And all of those things are in your personal control.
Paralysis to purpose.